Yeah, 9, 10, 12, 17, 39, and 40. And you're right, I think that, the setbacks, I think that will cover a lot of, concerns that the public would have, all the residents are doing that.
Is our goal then, is this committee then to just gather this information in opinion and give it then as a total package from each of us then to the board?
No, we're gonna give them here, research them, and then we'll come up with a finding out of the 5 of us. We take all this, combine it together, and what our recommendation is to the board for each of these subjects.
And we'll also integrate in with this information what we get from the developers, because the developers will be helping us to address some of these issues as well. And what we get from the other letters that went out, that we would bring it all together into this impact, part of our summary. And then we'll develop a summary statement that would be presented to the board.
And what our finding was, and then it's up to them whether or not they want to go with our findings or go with something else.
So what recommendations then are you going to make to me?
That's what we're going to discuss.
We're going to decide that coming up. I mean, we got to get all the information in here, and we'll go through these and recommendations. And those are the recommendation of what the setback should be. If we're doing the research for the board, because that's what we were put together, so if the setback's 1320 and we all feel that that's it, we vote on it and give it to them, and that's what it is, 1320. If it's 45 decibels, it's 45 decibels. But if we research it and find out they should be less, maybe 1,000 feet or more, a half mile, we got to come up with that, and that's what we have to do independently and come up with good information from everybody, because we're all independent, and we go and put it in here with their information and everybody else's, the stakeholders' information, come up with an answer, so that way they don't have to go back through all the information. We'll give them a guide to where this information and how we came up with this plan will be in this envelope here. And if they want to go and research it themselves after our time limit's up, they can research it amongst the township board and say, this is where they came up with this number, okay, we understand.
And when they work with their attorney, they might come up with something different.
Right.
We're just trying to come up with, based on the information that we see, what reasonable, their recommendations would be.
Well, that wasn't a part of our original charge, but
That's what was said at the last meeting by the township board, by Mr. Marks, that we weren't paying an attorney $200 an hour, and we were designed together to go and do this, to give them recommendations, because they didn't have the time to research it, and we don't have a planning commission, and we don't have the money to afford to buy an attorney to go and do this.
I'm saying we were gathered together to find information and present it to them.
But we could have stacks, we could have stacks this high.
You're like putting together an ordinance, what you're doing, which wasn't a part of that original.
Well, who said that?
It wasn't part of the original motion that we were given.
We didn't say an ordinance, we said we were giving them recommendations,
No,
and
we
they can
didn't.
go, and the other thing is that we can go and get all this information, we can bring them 12 lockerfuls or
Well, that
anything.
wasn't part of the original motion, if you go back and look at the minutes. So, if you want to do that, that's fine. You can put together another group to do that. I don't have a problem with that. If that's what you want to do and that's what the board wants to do. If that wasn't...
Norris, we've been through this every time we've met. Every time we've met, we've been through this, and you're beating a dead horse.
No, I'm not beating a dead horse. I'm just saying that wasn't a part of the original motion.
Did we not get the confirmation at the last township board meeting to continue on with what we were doing? And that's what we got as a confirmation, and that's what we're doing. And we're doing this, and every time, by the end of the meeting, you come up to the same thing, that this isn't our charge to do it. And it's already been said that this is our charge to do it by Mr. Marks at the last meeting, and Mr. Vandenbush. and Mr. Dennison voted for it.
It was not a part of the original motion that was made at that meeting, when this committee was put together, that I agreed to sit on to gather information to provide to the board.
All right, so
Now,
you're saying we're gonna
somebody wants to get
take.
together and
Okay.
put together an ordinance, and that's something different.
Okay, so well, if you want this done in a timely fashion, we're gonna do this work for 6 months, then we're gonna give it to the township board, and we're gonna stack them up with all these piles of paper, and then go for another year, so they can go through it, and then make another committee to go and do this, and then you don't get anything done for a year and a half, or do we go and do this time in the next 6 months, come up with recommendations to the board, so that way we can get on with this project? I mean, that's what I'm looking at. If you go and wanna do it your way, it's gonna take us another year, and we don't wanna do another year, do we?
We've done what we were asked to do.
Well,
We've
we were
identified the impacts, both good and bad.
And we were asked to bring to the board, it was my understanding,
They
it
just
was
said
my
that
understanding that we were asked,
Than it does any other way.
it is my understanding that we were asked to bring to the board recommendations to help guide them through this process.
Because they don't have the time to do it, and that's what was said at the last meeting.
And that's the way that we have been addressing it from day one on this committee. And that's the way every time we have a report out at the township board, it's stated every time we do that. And that has been our charge. That's been our understanding of the charge for this time period.
And that's why I've objected to it every time, because it wasn't a part of our charge. That's all I'm saying. And if that's what you want to do, fine, do that. But that was what we were charged to do, and that's not what I agreed to do. And if the board wants to put together a planning commission with a budget and to hire
They
people
don't want
to go
to.
through this
They
thing,
don't want to.
then they can do that.
We're not a planning commission, we're a citizens committee because we don't have a planning commission, we don't have zoning, and we're doing this because we were asked to do this. And that was verified at the last township board meeting, all right?
I agree with
So-
you that,
All right.
Eric. And like I said, we've gathered a lot of information, and we've got more information coming in,
And then we go through it and give them a recommendation, because they don't have the time. Like I said, if you want it done it quick, we have the time to do it because we're volunteers, and we can do it on our part-time instead of asking the township board to go and sit there in their evenings and have more meetings and more money coming out of our pocket to pay the township board to go and do all this stuff, that we got the time and we were volunteered as citizens committee to come up and give them recommendations. So that way they don't have to go through it, because if we can go and document, dump them to the end of the earth, but it doesn't do them any good if they don't do the research on it, and they go and say, they may come up with something totally different, and that's fine, but we have to do the research, give it to them, and let them make the decision. We're giving them a recommendation.
And our committee can add that value. And it's been our direction to add that value for the township board.
Right, we're
And-
doing
and
this
that
for
is
free,
what
at no
we're gonna
cost
do.
to no cost other than a few stamps is all we've costed them so far, and not having a planning commission. A planning commission costs money. You took a trip down to Paulding yourself, right? Did you charge the township board for that? No. We made a trip to the wind turbine farm. Did we charge the township board for that? No, we didn't. But if you go and take a group of planning commission or the township board, they're gonna want their money to go up there and go and see it and do these things. And we're having more meetings. We've had more meetings until this last month. We were having them every other week, where the township boards only meet once a month unless they have a special meeting. And we're putting more time and effort into this on my own time. I mean, I got a lot of stuff going on. You got your farm coming up, and weather's getting warm. I got stuff that I want to do too, but I think this is important. We volunteered for this to do the right thing for the community, and that's what we are. We should be pro-community, whether it's anti-wind, pro-wind, whatever. It's pro-community. It should be first and foremost, and that's what I'm about. Is what is good for our whole entire community.
And that is how we'll continue going forward. I mean, our intention is to provide the report up to the township board.
And if they want to throw it in the dumpster and say, give us your paperwork, we can do that. I mean, you know, the recommendation word on it doesn't mean anything, because it doesn't mean anything to them unless they want to go and take our recommendation. But I feel that after we were put together, the recommendation will be considered, because that's what we were put together for. Because they could have went and thrown together this list with people's input and got the information and done it themselves, but they don't have the time.
So let's get back to this list. Those few items that we've selected, is everybody okay? That's where we start focusing our attention. Setbacks, health risk that would relate to that. Any other items?
Well, we had what, 9, 10, 12, 17, 39, and 40.
Right.
That's all good to me.
Any further comment on it?
No.
Can we have a motion that we'll go forward with those?
I'll motion to go forward on
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Okay, let's vote on it. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the motion carries. The next question would be, how much time do we want now to do this next step, to first collect this initial stage of information and bring it back and start our discussions?
So our next meeting is sort of depend on how much time, right?
Right.
So.
I'd say a month again. I mean, I think that gives us plenty of time. It gives plenty of time to get this in. I know I got things that I got with Easter coming up and everything else. And like I said, Norris got farming to do and everybody's got spring stuff to do. And that gives us time in between in the rainy days or whatever that we have going on and to get this stuff done and taken care of and brought back. And, you know, then we can, if we want to, if we're looking like we need more time, then we can go and shorten up our time between meetings after that if we feel it's necessary. But I think a month is a good idea right now, just to go and get this stuff together. And we have plenty of time to research these in depth, and it gives time for this to come back.
Okay. Any questions on supplies to either print the documents out or?
I'll donate my supplies myself. I'm willing to donate mine.
Okay. Because I know the township has allowed in their budget for, to help support us with supplies or whatever, so. Okay. So 4 weeks, still have it on a Monday, May 9th? It'd be a Monday, 7 o'clock? Does that work within people's schedules? So that's what we'll do. I'll try to, my intent is to have a committee report tomorrow night, the board meeting. I will address what we talked about here on the requesting the township to start conversations with their insurance carrier and with the attorney. I'll also, in part of tomorrow night's report, I'll discuss the fact that the letters have gone out, the quantities, and that we have received some responses to date.
I don't think you need to go through all the responses necessarily, though, because that could come in the final report. I think you just got to mention that we have some.
Yeah.
Instead of going through them.
Good point. And,
Unless they ask one.
And what I'll do is, just like what we did tonight, I'll give copies of the sample letters to each of the township